All right, how are you feeling about that after watching the first debate, the first time meeting actually in person for former President Trump and Vice President Harris in their first and possibly only debate of this election season? I'm going to get your name right for the first time tonight. We've got a couple of distinguished guests with us this evening. Jennifer Stoddard Hoydu, the former chair of the Dallas County GOP, and also Delia Parker Mims, the chair of the Denton County Democratic Party.
Let me run to the fridge.
You're slipping away.
Let me run to the fridge.
Oh yes, by all means, we will give you a pass
Go ahead.
for that.
Keep talking.
Can we start? Usually we kind of go linearly through these things. Can we start at the end though, and sort of work our way back from there? It struck me there at the very end, the closing statements for these two candidates. We talked earlier tonight in some of the breaks about how it didn't seem like we got into a lot of policy. We didn't get a lot of policy details. It seems like there at the end, in that last pitch to voters, Vice President Harris was trying to paint a rosier picture of the way forward and a vision for the future, at least her vision anyway. And she has accused former President Trump in the past of only thinking about himself. But I thought it was interesting that he spent his entire closing statement talking about her. What did you think about that? Is that just trying to get in there and maybe make the case to those people who are still undecided that she's not the candidate, or was that the right move?
Well, I think he's trying to make a contrast as to, do you want the same thing you've had for the last 3.5 years, or do you want change? She tries to be the change agent, but the fact of the matter is she's been in the White House for the last 3.5 years, and actually the Democrats have had the White House 12 of the last 16 years, I believe. So he's really the change person. So I think he was trying to say, listen, you say you want to do all these wonderful things, but you haven't done them. You've been there, you've been part of the Biden administration, and you haven't done them. And so I think he's just trying to hone in to voters. If you are better off now than you were 4 years ago, I guess maybe you want to keep her. But I think most people would answer that question and say, I'm not better off than I was 4 years ago. The famous Reagan quote. But it's really poignant here because 4 years ago, President Trump was the president of the United States.
Well, and I know that he's a different kind of candidate and a different kind of campaigner, and I think people bake that in and they expect that from him in a way. But there was, in the closing statement there, he's saying it's a failing country. We've always heard this, adage that, the politician who seems like they are, the more optimistic one usually wins. Again, he hasn't changed much from the first time, and he won before.
Yes.
Is there a risk in that?
I think people know who he is. I mean, I just don't see with him that there's a risk. People know that he's very blunt. They know he's a New York businessman. He was like this when he ran for president against Hillary Clinton and won. He was like this when he was president of the United States, and he was like this when he ran against President Biden.
So he sort of defies that rule.
I don't think people are expecting him to be different.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important to note when you say he won. He's never won the popular vote. So he won because we have an electoral process, and which discouraged lots of young people who didn't understand why on earth is he president if he didn't win the popular vote. Never. He has shown us who he is, and he's never answered any policy position. He's never taken responsibility for anything. And I think what we got out of this is certainly a vision of what type of America we want. And because we weren't really knee deep in policy, we saw that Vice President Kamala, in the end, she closed with trying to be more positive and try to give a little bit more detail about what she wants to target when she becomes president. Now, one thing she said was, we inherited the mess that Trump's presidency created. And that was true. But we didn't hear anything about inflation or why we need to go after price gougers, not capping prices, which is what they've said. So I think one thing we may agree upon is they didn't talk about the economy as much. But what she did try to say is, we inherited a bunch of mess. We've been fixing a bunch of mess. We've got a booming manufacturing, and all he did is say is, no, they do not. But the reality is we do. We have the strongest economy in the country. Are we feeling it? No, because of inflation and the root cause of that. But we didn't hear anything about that. But if you followed Vice President Kamala at all and listened to her policies, she talks about the reason why we have inflation. And you can't, and it can't be done, pinpoint a reason why we have higher prices now other than we have companies that are making record profits using COVID as an excuse to raise prices. I think we should have got into that a little bit more because people do want to hear about how we have to continue to move forward.